This is Joe Van Cleve, and I'm going to do a little bit of still life photography today. I'm going to take my speed graphic and I'm going to try photographing this little bottle, and I'm going to use my grade 2 RC photo paper that I usually use for paper negatives. And then I'm going to try reversal processing the paper to make one-of-a-kind direct positive prints. And the first of these two attempts, I'm going to use the bleaching agent solution that I mixed up a week ago and never got around to reusing. And we'll see if it's exhausted or not. If it is, I'll have one more print that I can use to process with a fresh batch of solution. So I'm going to take a picture of this first. Okay, so this is the image on the ground glass. As I focus it, right about like that, I think is pretty good. A lot of glare, I realize, but that's basically, it's sitting on the little blue table, and there's a dark background behind it, so it should make the bottle stand out pretty good. Okay, so I've taken an incident light reading of the subject matter there, and I'm using ISO 3 is the lowest ISO on my meter, but I really want to use it at ISO 1.5, the paper, from my experience last time. So my f-stop is at 5.6. It's recommending a 15th of a second, so I'm just going to go to an 1/8 of a second. That'll give me one additional stop of exposure, which is equivalent to an ISO 1.5 or 1.6. So 1/8 of a second at f5.6. I'm going to make these both the same, and make sure my lens is closed. Open up pull the dark slide, f5.6 at 1/8 of a second, and alright, put the dark slide back in, flip it around, cock the shutter, pull the dark slide, make the second exposure. Alright, we should be good to go for our positive print exposure and processing tests. Okay, there is our film holder, and there is our wet side of the darkroom. We have to get all the chemicals set up, and then I can start processing. Okay, so I have my little drawers. I'm setting them up. So developer, rinse, our bleach is going to be in this tray, another rinse, our fixer, and our final rinse. So these trays here, the rinse, fix, and rinse, are already poured up. I have the rinse in here. I'm going to mix up the developer, so I'm going to do 300 milliliters of water, and I want it to be a 1+15 dilution. So if you think about it, 30 milliliters would be 1 to 10, 15 would be 1 to 20, so it's about 22. Halfway between there is 1 to 15. So I'm going to add 22 milliliters of the Ilford multi-grade developer here into the 300 to make my working developing solution. And then I have a glass bottle with the 18% hydrogen peroxide citric acid mix that I'm going to put on my PPE and to handle and pour it into the bleaching tray, and we'll develop the first picture and see if the bleaching agent is actually still working or not. So I need 22.5, or roughly 22. There's 20. All right. Okay, let's review the process before I start. Developer for 1.5 to 2 minutes, a rinse for about 30 seconds, the bleaching agent for about 5 minutes, maybe 3 to 5 minutes, depending on how it looks. At the point of after the bleaching agent, we can pretty much put it into room lights, because after the bleaching agent, I'm going to expose the paper to bright lights, and then we'll redevelop for another 1.5 minutes or so, then rinse, and then fix for 2 minutes, and then your final rinse. I have these heavy liquid containers are on top of the trays just to keep the tray from tipping over when you pull the drawer out. The weight of the liquid in the tray will make the thing fall forward if you don't have a weight on it. And then I have tongs for developer, tongs for the fixer, and then the tongs for the bleaching agent I keep in a little cup so that I don't spread the contamination around. So I'm going to start doing the developing. You won't be able to see that because I have to do it under red lights, but afterwards I'll show you everything else in room light. Okay, so I've just taken the print out of the bleach and put it in this holding bath before we re-expose it. So let's use this tong, and it's face down. So this is what it looks like when it comes out of the bleach before the re-exposure. So what I'm going to do is start my timer, and I'm going to drain all the water off of this. I normally would squeegee this also, but because I have the camera going, I'm going to start holding it up to my bright light. So as far as the question of whether the bleaching agent works, it sure does. That's what it normally looks like. You have this mottled, kind of brassy, bronzy, copperish color in parts of the image. I'm just flooding the remaining silver halides. The parts of the image that were near paper white or not fully dark originally in the negative image, I'm just exposing all of them fully, so when we redevelop it, it'll be nice and dark, so our shadows will darken up. So you're already seeing the highlights. So the table and the glass jar and some of the highlights of that grid-like trellis in the background. So I'm going to go ahead and stick it back in the developing bath here. Okay, I want you to be able to see this when I stick it in the developing bath. See those shadows? I probably have some kind of funky watermarks, maybe from handling it on my fingers. Who knows? But now my shadows are coming up because I've re-exposed the remaining unexposed silver halides after the bleaching happened. And so I'm going to go to about 1:30 to make sure these shadows are nicely developed. It may not be all that important to have the print squeegeed before this. As long as you get enough light in there to re-expose all the remaining silver halides, I think you'll be good. There is a little bit of modeling still in the highlights. Looks kind of granular. So we're getting pretty close to the 30-second mark. So I'm going to pull out the rinse tray underneath it, grab my developer tongs, and push it with my video camera hand, push it in, and then slip it into the rinse tray. And we'll go about another 30 seconds, and then we will have our fixer tray open over here. So I'm not really using a stop bath. Fixer generally has some acetic acid in it. It's already an acidic pH, so you can go right from developer to fixer. The question is really about how soon you're going to exhaust the fixer because of the additional developer that gets carried over, which is why I use a water bath. Okay, we're going to go into the fix, and I'll start my timer, and we will agitate this in the fixer for 2 minutes. Alrighty, so I just have it in this little rinsing bath. If I was going to do more of these, I would have a little bit of rinse aid in here, but let's put it into this little tray, and I will close this up. That's just water. Alright, so let's take a look at that. So there is some of that kind of bronzy colored modeling right along here and a little bit in here. The shadow of the glass is this part here. So there's a little bit of this modeling, and I don't know if that's what that's from. It could be because the bleaching agent was a week old, or it could have been that I left it in there, bleaching agent, for 2 minutes. I don't know if it needed to be any longer, but I know it was normal to have some of this modeling coming out of the bleaching agent. So I'm pretty sure that the re-exposure was sufficient because my shadows are nice and dark. And I have some really lovely out-of-focus background detail there that's kind of cool. That gives the image some character, and I like the sharply focused legs. Yeah, it's kind of interesting. It is a little mottled on the highlights. Again, that could be the result of the bleaching agent is old. Well, there you go. That's the first results from week-old bleaching agent. Reversal processing using 18% hydrogen peroxide solution with citric acid powder as a bleaching agent. Okay, so I noticed on this second print it was identical exposure to the first, identical processing in the developer and the rinse. It didn't bleach as quickly, though, in the second one. So the bleaching agent's probably getting a little bit exhausted, I would guess. Just rinse it off here. I will fog it, and then we'll process it back in the developer again and see what we get. I've fogged it really goodly for about a minute and a half, and I squeegeed it before I did that so that I could ensure a little bit more consistent fogging. And also I did run it through the bleaching agent for 5 minutes instead of the 2 minutes that I did earlier. So I'm going to go put this back in the developer now and see what we get. Okay, 2:16 on the timer. So I fogged it more and bleached it more. Of course, the bleaching solution was getting a little bit weak. The medium grays on the table still have kind of a mottled appearance. Now, I know in the conventional methods of doing reversal processing, there's a clearing agent that is used. I don't really know what the clearing agent is composed of. I'm going to have to research that a little bit more in the future and see if I can get a clearing agent maybe that's easy to use and not too dangerous. So, okay, I'm going to rinse and fix this and we'll take a look at it. Well, so that was a fun little darkroom session this morning, and I'm always liking to do these little still life tests. It's a good convenient way to test out a new process. But let's look at our results here. So this is the first shot, and I got some glare off my lights here, but this is the first one. I was pretty happy with the overall exposure. I thought it was okay. Again, I have the modeling, this kind of spottiness, and there's a lot of stuff going on in the highlights that is not really sure what's the little spottiness here around on those highlights right there. But after that first print, the second one definitely, the bleaching action was definitely slower, so it was definitely slowing down by the time I got the second print processing. And so again, there is some kind of spottiness going on right here in the highlights, and I don't know if it's related to my exposure or my percentage of peroxide in the bleaching agent, or maybe I need some kind of clearing agent also. I'm not really sure. But anyways, certainly the lifetime of this clearing agent, if you keep it in a sealed dark glass bottle, it seems like it lasts about a week at least. So that's good to know. Well, I enjoyed this process I did today. It certainly proves that my clearing bath will last about an extra week if I store it in a dark brown glass bottle. But I only got 2 prints out of it, and obviously by this second one it was certainly beginning to fade out in strength. And so I still have some work to do in this process to get it a little bit more reliable. I've seen at least one other result that one of my viewers posted on the previous video about this process, and he got some really good results with a portrait. So certainly I have work to do on this to improve it, but this is some interesting results, and I'm encouraged, continue to be encouraged that this is a viable alternative to the Harman direct positive paper. And it's, even if the Harman paper comes back into production, I still like the option of being able to do this process with resin coated paper and papers of different surface finishes, warm tone papers, etc. And so it gives me a lot more flexibility in the kind of print I like to have. So that is my results. So I hope this encourages you guys to explore it and see what you can do yourselves. Okay, until next time, this is Joe Van Cleve, and stay creative, and you guys have yourselves a great day.